All right, welcome back to another podcast. Today we have Michael Dorfman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So, Michael Dorfman is 83, going to be 84, and he has been living a whole food plant-based lifestyle for 17 years. So, we're going to talk a lot about that, and also how he came into this lifestyle, and some of his previous experience with it, and also being someone who's done it for long term. It's going to give everyone a lot of insight that this can be something that you can do on a long term basis, and probably the thing you should do if you want to have a long term basis with it. So first of all, let's start. Let's go back to where this journey of yours began, because everyone has a period in a time where they're eating what everyone else is eating, living the same life, and then at some point they realize that they want to make a change. So when did that happen for you?
Well, actually, I grew up in a family. My father was a butcher, my brother was a butcher, and I had several cousins that were butchers. So we ate meat when I was young. The first 25 years, eat meat, dairy, pretty much whatever my mom would put on the table. So and that was going on, and I played football. I had four scholarships to universities in football as a lineman, believe it or not.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, so I had to. It was C.W. Post, Bates College. I took the one from the University of Bridgeport, and but I was a little guy. I was built very well. I weighed like 195 pounds, and I was only 5'9". And when started playing football, went to the workouts at the university. These guys were too big for me, so I quit the team, and I ended up going back to Brooklyn College, and I continued. So, but what happened to me? My big change was in 1976 when I became interested in Eastern philosophy and religion. And at that time, I understood that there were people on that side of the world. There were vegetarians. They eat, they ate dairy, but they didn't eat meat. So I became a vegetarian, and it wasn't really because of the health. It was because of my beliefs. So I went into that. It was 76, and I was doing fine, except I would get sick every year. Not terribly sick. It was cold, flu symptoms, cold, sore throat, fever, congestion. And this was happening usually a couple of times a year. And I didn't understand it because I thought I was eating pretty well. And then my brother at that time, actually my brother, he was just 90. He's been plant based for 35 years already. So he told me, well, maybe the problem is the dairy. And at that time, I was hooked on dairy, like many people are. It's quite a big addiction. For many people, it's more difficult giving up dairy than it is for giving up meat. So I said, forget about it. And I kept on going for years were passing. I was getting sick. And then he told me about this book, the China Study by Colin Campbell. I read the book, and that was, it just changed my life. And I decided at that point I was going to try veganism. Well, I call it whole food plant based because many people have these concepts of what it is a vegan, and you could be a vegan and still eat not very healthy foods. So that was important for me. And as soon as I became a plant based, I wasn't getting sick anymore, and that was 17 years ago. I haven't looked back. And that was for me, my personal health. But I wanted to mention something that really was made a tremendous impact on me. It changed my focus on why I wanted to help other people. We had a friend, my wife and I had a friend. Her name was Beatrice. She lived in Cozumel on the Caribbean coast, and she got sick, and it ended up that she had a heart attack. So she went through bypass surgery, and on the operating table, she had a heart attack, but she survived. And then they sent her home. They told her that, okay, you're on your way, you go home. And she in 1 year she started having pains in her arm, which was a sign of one of the signs of cardiovascular problems. And the doctors called her back. What they didn't tell her, uh, she went back and they tried to put a stent into her the vein that had replaced the original artery, but the vein was too narrow and they couldn't fit the stent in. They told her that there wasn't much they could do, that she should go home, not be, exert herself too much, not do too many exercises. What they didn't tell her, and they told my wife at the time and her son, was that she had about 6 months to live. So I heard about that, and I had already been 2 years on plant-based foods, and I had read different books about doctors that were reversing heart disease with plant-based foods. And my favorite was Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who was the chief of staff at the Cleveland Clinic, and he was a surgeon. But he was every year, he said he was thinking about, how, the technology was getting better. People were well trained. The doctors were well trained, but things were getting worse with heart disease. So he decided to go the other direction, and he started the plant-based nutrition program he had. And he was getting rejects of people who were supposed to go through surgery. And he was getting the rejects. He started them on his protocols, and he was having over a 95% success rating on whole food plant-based therapy for these people. So, and then I just understood at that point that things weren't going well because doctors weren't helping people. For me at that time, when I heard it, when she went plant-based, because I had given the book on prevent and reverse heart disease by Esselstyn. She went on a vegan diet, and instead of living 6 months, she lived almost 9 years. So to me, it was like, ta-da, that was it. And it was, because I read about all these successes with plant-based foods, but here I had a friend who, I was able to help. So this was the big change in my life.
Yeah, right there you had when it's close to you and you can see something that helps someone. Like I think a lot of times we know it works for us, and I hear a lot where people say, "Well, your diet isn't for everyone." It's not for everybody. Not everyone can do that and have the same success. But I disagree with that. I think anyone that tries a whole food plant-based diet will see improvements for sure.
Absolutely. And we're living it. So, and I was listening to your presentation on the vegan when you went through these blood tests and everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just incredible how simple changes in diet. I mean, even if you have a difficult time going completely whole food plant-based, it's important to make changes, because in the long run, there's nothing that really works well for human beings as plant-based foods. And unfortunately, we're in, people are just stuck on the meat with the paleo diet and the keto diet, which are the most popular diet. But those don't work long term. And, so I think it's important for people to hear this message continuously.
Yeah, there isn't a sector of the civilization that has thrived long term on any of those type of diets, and I don't think you can find any evidence of that out there currently.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And then I go back to the blue zones, the longest living, the healthiest and longest living people on the planet, and they're the base is plant based. They have other lifestyle practices which are very important to me also, but they're, I don't know, at least 90% plant based, and they live 10 to 15 years longer than we live here in the West.
Yes, for sure. Why do you think doctors will fail to try to suggest a dietary remedy or dietary protocol? They're always their first line of defense, and only real line of defense seems to be medications. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. One is that their training, their education, uh, y- they don't get more than a few hours on nutrition and lifestyle. So that's not going to be, their main focus in offering people this possibility. But the other side is that the pharmaceutical companies, the power of the pharmaceutical companies is it's I think it's over $1 trillion business now, and that's what the doctors learn mostly. They learn a lot about the body, about health, but their number one response, you go in for a checkup or you go in, you feel something's wrong with you, and you'll most probably get a pill for an ill, and that's what you look forward, and you accept it because it's easy. So, you just take a pill. It's better than, going through maybe changing your diet. You want to change your lifestyle. People are not used to that. They just want the quick fix. And that's what the problem is. And that's why, we've become a society that's addicted to pharmaceuticals, whether it's, for depression, whether it's for pain relievers, whether it's, all those pills are out there, and there's always something that the doctor is willing to give us, and we're willing to take. And it's interesting because, one of the problems is, to really get to find a doctor that's really good, the doctor has to spend time with you to find out about you, and not the. I remember a famous quote by Hippocrates. He said that it's more important to know the person that has the disease than the disease that a person has. But doctors don't spend time with their patients. You need to spend time to learn about it. And I got, whenever I have to go through to a doctor, they don't even care about me. They don't care about what I'm eating. They don't care about what I'm going. They just want to know, well, what's your problem, and we'll give you the pill for it. And that's what's unfortunate about, and that's where we're heading. And that's why, the health situation in the U.S. Same thing here. I live in Mexico. Same, is getting worse and worse. Worldwide, it's getting worse because, we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that there was some studies that they done where they interviewed doctors and asked them why they didn't suggest diet, and they've actually done studies where they've interviewed patients as they come out of the doctor's office, and the ones who left with a prescription felt better about the visit, even though the same thing happened in all the visits, but they separated them to two groups, and the people that came out with the prescription written for them just had a feeling that they were getting something done.
Yeah, exactly. But it ends up that, we have, what is the life expectancy? In the mid
78,
70s,
yeah, 78.
70, upper 70s. But that's what people are. Well, they think they get to their 70s, and they have maybe they have a one chronic disease or two chronic diseases, but the life expectancy is, what we're saying, and people don't even think about, well, is that it? I'm in
Right.
my 70s, and then you get, you live a few more years, but there's, it's almost like you're over the hill. There's nothing really to look forward to except surviving, and
Right.
that's what it is. It's surviving a few more years, but it doesn't have to be that way. And what I'm, trying to do, as I'm going to be 84 in January, is try to be an example of that's not true. Life begins at 80.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Well, it's funny because when my father died, 67, heart attack, and I had friends of the family said, well, he lived a good life. He lived it his way, the way he wanted to. And I was like, well, they're like, "You lived to 67. That's a good run." I'm like, "But he was miserable for the last 10 to 12 years." So that to me, and I talk a lot about on my program, is that it's not just to live to 90. It's to live to 90 and be mobile and be able to do all the things you love to do. It's one thing to live to 90, but we want to live healthfully to 90, right?
Yeah, and that's it's there for the taking if
Yeah.
we really apply ourselves. And I think more than anything is like we need to have a change of mindset because the people who are, taking the pill and just, whatever the doctor offers and believe that, there isn't much life, after 80, it's a mindset. And I think that what needs to change is the way people look at health, and that's the way I feel. And that's, to me, it's been such an important thing to be in my 80s and just to feel as well as I am. And and it's like the better I feel, the more I want to, hey, I'm going to keep going. I want to get better and better and better. I don't want to get, sick. Well, if I get sick, I get sick. But I'm sort of stuck in this mindset, which I'm happy about, that I'm just going to keep getting better by, eating healthier and doing certain lifestyle changes because I'm doing a lot of researching because
Yeah.
I want to keep on going, because now I'm representing the healthy octogenarian, and I want to make sure, because if I have my book, which I'm writing, I'm almost finished, which is the Longevity Wellness Revolution, because I think this is a revolution to me, where we can actually, it's thinking about health in a different way as you get older. And it's really, really, really possible. And that's what the message has to be. But I have to be, I have to walk the talk, and that if
Right.
I don't want to get on here and all of a sudden I don't feel that well. Well, I'm not going to listen to you then, So I just want to be an example of what it means to be truly thriving and healthy. I feel as healthy as I've ever felt, yeah, at any
Yeah, same
age.
here. There was two things I want you to touch on because I thought you really explained this really well in one of your YouTube lectures. And the first part of this is the germ theory versus the terrain theory, because I think this kind of ties into where the medical industry went astray. So, if you could briefly just speak to the germ theory with Louis Pasteur and the terrain theory and
Yeah,
how those things got
yeah.
sidetracked, how medicine got sidetracked, I believe.
Yeah, well, it was in the late 1880s, and Louis Pasteur, he was a great scientist. So he was studying germs and with his microscope, and he was making the connection between germs were the main cause of disease. And that's what we followed today. It's the germ theory of disease. And at that time, he had a colleague who was Antoine Bernays, who was what is it called? The terrain theory of
Terrain theory,
disease.
yep.
The terrain theory of disease. So his theory was that he gave an example, and the example was that you have a pile of garbage, and around this garbage is a whole bunch of flies. So how do you get rid of the flies? Well, one way of getting rid of the flies is to take this spray, a fly killer, that you just go around and you spray and you spray, and you're going to kill the flies. The flies are going to be gone. So you go away from the garbage and you come back in a few hours, and there, oh my God, the flies are here again. New flies are here again. So you go and spray it again. So that's what it is. You just have to keep doing that. And that's what I sort of look at the way doctors treat illness. And then he said the other option is get rid of the garbage, and that is, then the flies won't be there. So his idea was that if your body is clean, is healthy, you won't get the disease. As you know, it's sort of completely different take on the whole idea of disease. And they were rivals at that time, and the medical profession went with Pasteur, and that's what continues to this very day. And yet, in my book, I write about this. That if we would have gone the other way, it would have been more on how to take care of ourselves. How to really get rid of the cause, because the cause of the flies was the garbage. And so how do you get rid of the cause, and what is that? What is the root of the disease? And when you find out that when you're taking care of, and you're taking care of yourself, and you're eating healthy plant-based foods, and having a healthy lifestyle, you're following the Bernays theory of keeping yourself clean, healthy, and then you're going to be you'll be able to go through the 70s without getting a chronic disease. So that's my take on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this other concept you talked about as far as the drug industry is the Rockefeller Carnegie connection. Speak a little bit about that, because I think this really is where the pharmaceutical industry really, really, really took off when they saw how much money there was to be made in this, and it got away from natural healing, and
Right.
for greed got into developing pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. Well, before the 1900s, the main the physicians or the healers were using natural remedies. We didn't have drugs at that time.
Yeah.
So they had different, it was herbal healing, it was naturopaths, it was acupuncture, Chinese medicine. This is what was going on. People were being cured by that. And that was what universities were teaching, that there was no drugs. And the only thing they had, which they have today, was surgery, which they had to use that. But that's what the main thing was, how the healing was done. And then in the Rockefeller was he was probably the richest man that ever lived, and it was Standard Oil, and they found out that you can make medicines, pharmaceuticals out of oil. And that's what they did. They started doing that, and he got together with Carnegie, and they decided that this is a great business. That here we can cure diseases with these pharmaceuticals. And then they went completely to go against the natural healing. And there was a big movement against the natural healing until they removed any kind of funding for natural healing universities and clinics. And this became a big movement towards pharmaceuticals. And that's another thing that happened. And that's what's happening today. Pharmaceuticals just grew and grew and grew. And natural healing, which was at that time the mainstream, is now alternative, whereas the drugs were not mainstream, and now they're mainstream. So what we need to do is bring back, and it's happening, the alternative, and make it more mainstream, and people to know that this is what really works.
Flip it back. We need to flip it backwards.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's what we're doing, trying to get the word out, right?
Right.
You talked about how the body has its natural healing ability, and I talk about that a lot as well, and how we need to get things out of the way of the body trying to heal itself. Speak a little bit about that and that concept. I think people need to hear more of that.
Well, I think it goes back to the very beginning when we're born. Ever since we took our first breath, the body has been healing us, has been taking care of us. And it's really I get into the gut and the gut microbiome, which is made up of 36 trillion microbes. We're more microbes than we are human cells. And this is what's it's inside our body, inside our gut, inside our whole body, and even on our body, that these microbes live. And these microbes are they're bacteria, they're viruses, they're all kinds of microbes that are living inside and outside of us that we either we can destroy if we want, and that's what drugs do, antibiotics do, or we can live in harmony with them. And I think from the very beginning that our body has been trying to take care of us, and these microbes are part of the deal, is because they want to live. All living beings, whether plants or animals, they want to live, and our body and all those microbes that are inside our body and on our body, they want to live as well. Because as long as we're alive, you and I are alive, they are alive. So that's what they do, and that's what they've been doing during our whole life. We think that, okay, the doctor's going to cure us, or the doctor's going to heal us. No, it's our body that heals us. It's the immune system. It's the whole repair system that we have has been working to heal us, take care of us ever since we're very young. We look at a doctor, and we go to a doctor because we break our arm, so they put a cast on, and it's really the body that's healing the arm, or it's the body that's healing the cut. It's the body that's doing the work. It's what another thing that Socrates had said was like, we have a doctor inside of us that is the greatest healer of all, and all we have to do is help him in its work. And we help the doctor inside of it in its work by just doing what it needs to function at its optimal state. And that's what we need to do is allow our body and trust our body to self-heal, because it's been doing that. But the problem is we go away from that, and we don't trust our body to self-heal, and we decide that we're going to go, we're going to take drugs, we're going to do, what the doctor tells us. And unfortunately, our body is, if we don't allow our body to take care of us, it's going to, maybe when we really need it, it's not going to be there. And that's what I think is most important, is listening to our body, getting in touch, connecting with our body, is telling us, and just really, one of the problems I think is that we want this quick fix. We don't want to feel pain. We don't want to feel discomfort. But these aren't bad things, but we just don't want to do that anymore. And we have the ability to repair, but we have to trust our body's self-healing powers, and we're not doing that anymore. And that's what's causing so many problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting back to what we are designed to do on a physiological level, the body was designed for natural healing, and like we've got to get back to that. And when we do get back to that, that's when we thrive. Every time. I know I've felt that. I know you've felt that. Let's talk a little bit about. I'd like to give people some real insight. I'm sure you have this all the time as well. Is the first thing people always want to know is, well, what do you eat? What do you do? What this is the way for people to really get some real world examples, especially for someone who's going to be 84. What is your daily diet really consist of on a daily basis? Do you eat the same things every day, or do you mix it up every day? Or
Well, I'm very fortunate because my wife is also she's an incredible vegan cook, and she's been doing this for 17 years, the same as we've been vegans. So my breakfast is pretty much very similar. Oatmeal is my favorite breakfast, so I combine oatmeal with fruits, different fruits. I'll have there's so many great fruits down here. So I have fruits. I'll have my wife also, she makes sourdough bread. So I'll have a piece of toast, sourdough bread. And I have a drink I make in the morning with matcha tea and chocolate and almond milk. So I make that. It's a great drink. So I have that, but I also make my own granola, which I alternate also. And sometimes she makes a special breakfast out of. She makes eggs out of tofu. It's scrambled eggs, and she makes that. So we'll have that with avocado and maybe beans in the morning. So that's the morning. And the afternoon, she always likes to experiment. But we have a lot of cruciferous vegetables with cauliflower and kale and different cruciferous vegetables, and also beans. We eat a lot of beans and including black beans, soybeans. We'll eat chickpeas and peas and quinoa or quinoa as it called. Different types of grains and cereals, and I'll have some nuts and seeds. It's incredible, there's so much to eat in plant-based foods. If people don't even know that, it doesn't wasn't like that before when it first started. I remember we used to go on a plane, and they would just give you, oh, I had a vegan diet. This was years ago, and they would give you
Yeah.
like cooked carrots and tomatoes, and that was it. But and now there's so many. I mean, you just go on the internet, and there's like thousands of recipes. You can even tell, just say that, oh, I have this these vegetables and grains, and tell me what kind of what can I do with it, and they'll come up with different recipes. So I have that. So she makes. We'll have beans. We'll usually have a grain for lunch. Where the green, we'll have also corn, and we eat a lot of mushrooms, and there's so many vegetables. But we try to combine the colors of vegetables, because the colors of vegetables are very important, because that's where the antioxidants are. And each vegetable has a different taste, which is wonderful. So I do that. But we cook also without oil. We don't use oil for cooking. I stay away from oil because of some of the results, especially from Caldwell, Dr. Esselstyn, that oil, and people are really into oil. It's very hard to go to a restaurant without having it, even a vegan restaurant. There's, they use a lot of oil for cooking, and oil is detrimental because not only is it, just so it's liquid fat, it's very high caloric content, but it's also supposedly destroys the nitric oxide, which is in the endothelium cells of our arteries. And what this nitric oxide does, it makes our arteries flexible, so they can contract and expand. And also, it acts like Teflon, whereas things don't stick to your artery with the nitric oxide. It's a gas. So I go along with that, and I'm fine with that. And you find out you don't even need oil to cook. You can just do either with water, or you make a broth out of vegetables. It's unlimited. If the people to think that, well, what am I going to eat, is they just don't know. And there is so much more you can eat with vegetables than you can eat with meat. So much different variety. It's all
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, there's like 5 different, flesh things you can eat. But like when people say, "Well, I don't like bananas," I'm like, "Okay, you have literally 300 other fruits you could eat besides bananas if you don't like bananas."
Yeah.
What what's your exercise? What kind of activity do you get on a daily basis?
Well, I've become a fanatic of pickleball.
Okay.
I am so happy I found it, because uh, it's a sport. I was always a competitive. So I played football when I was younger, but I was always competitive in sports. And it turns out that they had pickleball here in San Miguel, started 9 years ago. I stayed away because I had a problem with my right eye, but I got into it, and I started playing, and now I play 4 times a week. And pickleball is such a great sport, because it's not only great for eye brain coordination, hand eye coordination. You start moving muscles you haven't moved in years. Just and it's a fantastic social sport. is just, and here in San Miguel, we have, I don't know, just, over 10,000 expats live here. And we get so many, maybe 200 people playing pickleball, but the relationships, it's just a happy feeling. And it's for the endorphins. So I really enjoy that. But I also go walking on other days. I used to go to the gym. I've slowed down with that, but I do different lifestyle things, lifestyle practices. I do intermittent fasting. I do hot and cold therapy. I started doing. It was very hard for me to do because I hate the cold, but I do it in my with the showers. But I got used to it, and I'm doing all this because I want to keep being healthy. So I'm sort of stuck in my mindset, but I'm really happy because, hey, here's a great reason. I just want to help people, and I'm just going to do this. And I do intermittent fasting. I also do breath holds, and so these are some of the things. I hang. I do what do you call it? What it's called, dead hang
Dead
from
hang, yep.
a bar. And I also do. I have a machine that the inversion table. So I do that too. I meditate in the morning. I'm just trying because one of the big problems we have today is stress. I saw also one of your podcasts. Or I listened to one of the podcasts on the stress doctor, and it's such an important thing, because especially now where things are, the uncertainty of the world, and in the U.S. is, people losing their jobs, or, you have the relationships. What happens, with the stress you go through, and somebody close to you gets very sick or passes away. So I do these practices as practices for, it's called the eustress or brief stress to help you against when there's really stressful situations and the world situation. So I think one of the big problems with stress is that it releases the stress hormone cortisol, and we need to understand that cortisol is supposed to be a brief moment, of having stress. But when we're constantly in stressful situations, chronic stress, the cortisol is working all the time, and it's causing havoc in our system, including digestive system. And the problem is we get used to it, and people are stressed out a lot and all the time, but it becomes normal, and that's very unhealthy. So meditation, using that calming down is important, because we need to have moments when we're not in stress. And this is these are the things I do to help me with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all natural healing stuff, the food, the diet, the cold, hot, the intermittent fasting. What's your window typically look like?
Well, I do. It's 14 hours, which is
Yeah.
it's not that hard. It's
No.
pretty. I stop eating at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I start eating at 10 o'clock the next morning, and that's 14 hours. My other son, one of my sons, he does 16 hours. So, but I feel that I'm reading this book, The Stress Paradox, which is a great book. And 14 hours is fine, especially at my age. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
People can do it longer. And, because you go from, you're depending on the carbohydrates. And then when you go into the ketosis for a short period, which is good, it's stress on the body. But then I go eating again, it goes back to carbohydrates, which is the preferred food of our body for millions of years. People,
Yes.
we
Yes,
can
yes,
eat,
yes.
we can eat other things. There are people around the world that, they eat meat, and we can live on meat because we've done that. Our ancestors have lived on meat, but we do best on plants, and we have to have it. We need the plants for the fiber. Fiber is the favorite food of our microbiome, the microbes. That's what they they live on. That's what their favorite food is, and that's what they in return they give us good health.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, they've done studies on, and I'm sure you've heard of Dr. Joel Kahn, the
Yes.
cardiologist. They've done studies where the fasting window 12 to 14 is like kind of the sweet spot. Anything over that starts to have diminishing returns as far as length. So yeah, I do the same thing between 12 and 14, pretty much every day. What, you take any supplements at all, or?
I take B12, which is a controversial one, but it's pretty much recommended by all plant food doctors, plant
Yeah,
based doctors. Just to be careful, because it's not a reason that, oh well, plants, that's not perfect. It's just
right.
that B12 is converted by bacterias in the ground, in the soil. But when we get the food, it's so it's the hygienic process makes everything so clean that we're
Yeah,
not getting the B12. So I take the B12. I think 1,500 a week. There's different opinions on it, but and one thing that's really important, and I think that I've read about, I'm not sure if you have, is that everybody should be taking B12, because when you're eating meat, because supposedly the cows eat the grass, and then you eat the cow, so you get the B12, so there's no problem. You get the B12, but cows aren't eating grass anymore. The ones that are coming from the factory farms, they're
yeah,
just getting the soy and the corn. So that doesn't have B12. So, and supposedly, there's some heavy problems that can happen if you're not getting B12 for over long periods of time.
yeah,
So I make sure I do the B12. Besides B12, I do supplements. I take it's called amla powder, which is the Indian gooseberry. I take other curcuma. Yeah, different types of herbs, powdered forms. I add to my food. That's what I do. But as far as vitamins, I stay away from vitamins. I don't. Ever since it was the China study by Colin Campbell. I read his other book called Whole, and he talks about holistic against reductionism, and he just explains how we just got into this whole thing of vitamins and minerals. We think it's as good as eating the whole food, but it's not.
yeah,
It's such a beautiful way that Dr. Campbell talks about, how when you eat an apple, it's a concert, it's an orchestra, it's all these vitamins in this one fruit working together, and the body uses it. You take a vitamin A that comes from the apple, and you say, oh, I'm going to have the vitamin A and that's going to do it. No, it's not. It's this whole concert of this food that the body is taking in, and each part of that fruit, that apple, is working in concert with every other part of it, and the body is taking exactly what it needs at that moment in time. That's the whole food. So when you get stuck on the vitamins and the minerals, that's reductionism, because the belief is the part is as good as the sum of the parts is as good as the whole. But it's not true. The whole is much greater than the sum of the parts, because the whole is life itself. So yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that about.
yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that in food also is the right amount of the vitamin or the mineral, so you're getting it at the right amount for the cells. The cell can only take in so much vitamin C at one time. So if you're just gonna give it 1,000 milligrams right off the back, or 1,200 milligrams of vitamin C all in one sitting, like that's not how the body was designed to take in vitamins.
yeah, and it's interesting. Now that you mentioned the vitamins, I've been off and on, mostly off with vitamin D3, because it became a big thing, especially during the pandemic. Vitamin D was like, wow, you take vitamin D, you can be free of these diseases. So I was, I was taking vitamin D3, but I was unhappy with because there was so many different opinions on vitamin D, how much you should take, and for me, is I decided a few months ago that I was going to do the sun, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm just making sure I'm going out, every other day for 20 minutes to a half hour. We get a lot of sun here. So I don't know how it is in Wisconsin. How
Yeah.
this, yeah, that's a problem. So I got off the vitamin. I feel comfortable. I got off the vitamin D because vitamin D isn't even a vitamin; it's a hormone.
Hormone.
So it
Yeah.
has so many different, things it does in the body. But I feel better getting off of the vitamin D. And some doctors, say it's good to do that. So take the vitamin D. But that was my personal decision.
Yeah, I take because I live in Wisconsin and we're gonna have probably
Yeah,
4 months, 5 months of very little
yeah,
sunshine. I take it a small dose in the winter time, but I don't take it in the summer at all because I get so much sunshine in the
that's
summer.
good.
So excellent, excellent. Well, excellent discussion here. I have one more thing I'd like you to talk about before we wrap up here. And this was, I think, a blog I saw on your website. You had the four like people who are sick or do need to go to the doctor. You had four critical questions to ask your doctor in one of your blogs. I thought was very, very, very interesting. So maybe wrap things up with that concept.
Yeah, well, I hope I remember the four. But the one thing I wanted to mention is that when I don't go to doctors very often, I really try to avoid them. I'll go to the dentist. I'll go to a skin doctor because I've had a couple of problems with the skin. But anything else, I try to avoid going to a regular doctor. But if I do, and even if I go to a dentist or a skin doctor, I will try to research. I want to go to a doctor knowing something about why I'm going to that doctor for.
Yes.
And I don't think people do that enough. So it's really important that you do the research and you find out and you go in there with some knowledge and you can even ask questions. And if you go to a doctor, doctor said, okay, prescribes, a drug or something like that. But if you talk to the doctor and you can show the doctor that you know some things about, you may even know more about what you're doing the research than the doctor knows. But is this drug necessary? That could be one of the
Yeah.
the questions. Or what happens if I don't take this drug? What happens if I don't do what you're telling me to do? Are there any other options?
Yeah.
So that was another thing. And then, I don't remember. I'm not sure if I remember the other. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the?
Well, I think one of the questions is if you're going to put me on medication, what's our plan to get off the medication?
Okay, that's a great one.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think, and when I talk with people, the doctor put me on this medication for this issue. I always ask, well, so how long do you have to be on it? Because they told my father when he went on high blood pressure medicine that he would be on it for the rest of his life, and we all know that that's not true. You don't have to be. But I think one of the other critical questions is what's our plan to get off this medication? Because some people go in for if they have really high A1C or really high blood pressure. Okay,
Mhm.
well, you need to get the patient in a safe space. So we have to get the patient safe, right? So we're going to give you this prescription to get your blood pressure down to a better level to save your life, basically. But the patient needs to say, okay, but what is our plan to
Yeah.
get off this medication?
And that's one of the great question because a great majority of the doctors may not have a plan because they don't see you as getting off of the medication. They're
Yeah.
seeing you there. They see themselves as helping you to manage the situation. And we don't want to do that unless it's super necessary. We want to get off. We want to, get to a point where we're not taking the medication. Why? Because, well, you watch TV and you see all the side effects of all these medications. And is that what you're going to want to do for the rest of your life? The United States is one of two countries in the world that advertises medications, pharmaceuticals on the TV. The other one is New Zealand.
Oh,
And yeah, in Mexico, you're not allowed to advertise
oh wow. I did not
medication
know
to you.
that.
Yeah, yeah. And what do they do? So you look at the commercials on TV, everything to get you sick, and then you have the drug to get you well.
All the side
With
effects.
all the side effects. And is that what you want to do? And then another question was, well, what happens if I decide not to do anything you're telling me to do?
Right.
You know, and then I bring up one point. I remember the article I wrote about mentioning what happens if you know what about nutrition,
Right.
because there's something I could do.
Can I
So this
fix
way you
right?
could
Can I fix this? Yeah.
yeah, and you find out how much your doctor really knows about the lifestyle.
Yeah, when I and I did a podcast on this where I my PSA was creeping up, and the doctor right away was like, "Well, I'm going to send you to a urologist." And I said, "Well, I've been vegan for a few years here now at the time." And I said, "I really believe in the diet. I think I'm going to research some ways, that I have to fix whatever I'm eating or what I'm it's got to be something I'm eating that's causing inflammation to cause this number to go up. Is there anything that you could suggest diet wise?" And they had no suggestion for
Right.
me. And so then I figured out I was eating some soy protein isolate, which was in some processed granola bars I was eating. And that soy protein isolate raises IGF-1 more than animal protein. And actually, Dr. John McDougall had done a whole lecture on this. So I cut that out of my diet and my PSA dropped.
Well, that's terrific.
So it's like, you have to be, I agree with you. You have to be your own advocate, because when you're in that room with the doctor, sometimes they're not really, like you said, they don't get to know you. They don't never ask you what you eat. They don't ask you what do you do for exercise, what's your stress levels. They just, here's, like you said, their training is, here's the problem, here's the prescription. Is that fair?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's maybe the one of the most important messages is you really have to take responsibility for your health. And once you start doing that, there could be great changes in your life because you're going to start researching. And there's doctors that are having tremendous success, and there's so much out there. One of the questions that we were asked, I'm sure you're asked that, where do you get your protein from? And then we know that you get it from plants, of course. And I remember one of the uh, strongest athletes in the world was Patrick Babubian. And somebody asked, he's like built like a tremendous, and he's a vegan. And somebody asked him the question of what do you eat to get built like an ox? And he says, well, I eat what an ox eats, which is plant-based foods and all the other animals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, absolutely excellent discussion here, Michael. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show. I think lots of insight that you gave everyone. The people that are listening to the podcast and not watching the YouTube video, um, Michael does not look 83 at all. So that's
Thank you.
definitely a testament to the great diet and the great lifestyle for sure. So we appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll put all the links to all your website and your Facebook page and YouTube information all in the description below. So appreciate you having on the show today.
Thank you very much, Michael. It was great to be here.